Technology is always fun. All right, so just a little bit about Doug. Many of you probably already aware that the Doug Meetups is a wonderful organization of a very large number of members, 47,000 and counting, of people trying to come together to share knowledge and share information about the evergreen and ever-changing Dynamics and Microsoft community. So obviously Dynamics user group is now expanding into the co-pilots and the power platforms, as well as the Dynamics products and so on. So so Doug has been around for a very long time in this industry, and so has really put an anchor into the industry, and it helps us all grow our knowledge, expand our footprint, as well as building a ton of great content online. So so there's lots of content, video content, training programs, events, both virtual and in person, regional meetups. I'll show a bunch of that, but there's a ton of information to build your career, build your knowledge, share your knowledge under the watchful eye of the Doug community, and it's free. This is the most incredible thing about this community is it's full of experts. There's tons of MVPs in here, and they're all willing to share their time and knowledge at no charge, which is phenomenal. So highly recommend if you don't have your organization all set up on Doug. I would highly recommend you share links out to your colleagues at the dynamicsusergroup.com website, and just spread the word with all the stuff that they can take advantage of in the meetups, excuse me, in the Doug community. So, all right. Vonna, can you switch screens?
There we go.
Thank you. So the first thing is obviously this meetup, just what are they? It's a place for us to connect. And hi, Robert, thanks for coming. And so as I mentioned, it's a group of awesome people. Like I am truly amazed at how wonderful this community is and how much they want to share and how much they really enjoy meeting each other, volunteering to do things. They put their hands up as speakers constantly. So the meetups, if you want to start one, absolutely, it's possible. Nancy and Vonda and I started this one. Was it 2 years ago, Vonda?
I think we're coming up for 3 years.
We're upcoming for 3 now, aren't we? Yeah.
November,
Yeah.
December, wasn't it?
Right.
2023.
So we saw a need in our niche of more of that administrator level meetups, because all the meetups really try to focus on a certain area. But there are meetups all over. I've attended Roberts and in a different community. I've attended meetups virtually in Memphis and in Florida, all over Florida. So it's really, really interesting to go and see what the meetups are. So highly recommend that. And then they're open to all members of the community. So the one kind of rule of thumb here, or rule of engagement, is it's not an opportunity to sell your services and recruit people. It's honestly just a knowledge sharing session. So, all right, next screen. Thank you. And like I said, there's a billion programs. So programs are free. There are some paid events, but to be part of the Doug community, there's no charge. So what you want to do is you want to find your niche. So either your Business Central or AI or customer engagement, whatever is your group, or multiple. And you dig in and you join those meetups that focus on the areas that you prefer or you need. And so you can see there's all the different groups on the left side of there. And then there's online forums, there's meetups, there's the conferences. We'll talk about that in a minute. YouTube channels. So all the stuff that we do, we record it and it gets posted onto the YouTube channels. And I love making my little playlists, and I have a little co-pilot in there trying to give me some summaries. So lots of really neat content. There's webinars all the time. There's meetups. There's local meetups, which is a really awesome way to kind of network and meet other people. And that I met Nick at a local meetup of the Microsoft space. Was it early April?
Yeah, it's not that long
It was like
ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, I was like, hey, that's Nick walking by. He's going to be in our meetup next month, so or next 2 weeks. So it was really neat. So there's other brands out there that do the meetups, but I would highly recommend, if you haven't attended something local that is in in your city. Highly recommend it if you get an opportunity to do it. Like, just do it. Then the amount of knowledge that you take away from these in-person meetings is quite incredible. And then there's the regionals, and we'll talk about that today. So please grab that QR code for more information. And Vonda, can you flip to the next screen, please?
Mm-hmm.
So a bigger QR code for you. So if you fill out that form, they'll send you some information on upcoming meetups or events and so on. So take a moment, please, and grab your screenshot or your cameras and fill out the form and get some more information. So, all right, next one, Vonda.
The next slide is also a QR code, so get excited. Voila.
For DynamicsCon. And this is around the corner. So presumably if you're going, you already have your tickets and you're heading to Las Vegas. It's a wonderful event, really, really awesome event. And highly recommend it. Just multiple days of just saturation of learning and awesome presentations. If you're a meetup leader like we are, it's also a great place to meet other meetup leaders and see what works for their meetups, to get a roster of guest speakers for your meetups. Like, it's a phenomenal experience. And so it's in Las Vegas, May 12th to 15th. All right. And I think they're still taking registrations. At some point they'll close registration, but I think it's still on. So
we're getting close.
Yeah, so a couple of I talked about earlier, there's some regionals that are in person. Highly recommend them. If you're in Tampa, if you're in Vancouver, if you're in Denver, if you're in Toronto like I am, and Nick is in Toronto, so we can actually meet you there. So June 18th to 19th, right in downtown at the Microsoft office, which is beautiful. If you're in Africa, there's meetups, and there's a growing footprint of Dynamics meetups in Africa, which is really interesting. And some more. So we've got one in Columbus coming up, one in Montreal, which at this point, I plan to be there as well. I was there last year. I did a presentation on the sales agents, so sales co-pilot agents. So if you're in Europe, like Vonda, you can pop over to Germany to go to Frankfurt, which
Just
is an
like
awesome
that.
city.
Just
And
like
then
that.
just like that, I can pop over. And then Houston, Texas, of course, which is always a fun place. So again, another QR code there for the regional meetups. Just monitor them. They don't open up registration too far in advance, but just monitor that meetup, regional meetups page, and you'll see when the registration's open. And I wouldn't delay trying to sign up for the meetups because they are growing in popularity, and eventually they cut off because it's an in-person event. So they just run out of space. So I know the event, it was either Montreal or Toronto, they had to shut the registration last year because there were just so many people trying to attend it. And but I think there's always a way to sneak in.
It's who you know. It's who you know. You can try us. We'll
and
lobby
Robert,
on
yes,
your behalf.
perfect. The events are free. This is the best thing. You can sometimes get a really cool t-shirt. That's not free, but you get to go to these events for free. So regardless of where you are in your career path, these are really great ways to see what's going on in the world in this space. So all right.
Okie dokie. That's the end of QR codes, and that's the end of housekeeping. So back to you.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's
Thank
pins and
you.
stickers too, Robert. That's true. Okay, so today we have an awesome session on all things Power BI and Fabric, and there's definitely a lot of knowledge out there on some aspects of analytics and how to dig into your data more intentionally and with really awesome tools. So when I found Nick's content, I was so excited to talk to him about it. So Nick, can you just spend a moment introducing yourself, and then I'm going to hand it right over to you. And I know you've got a lot of content you want to cover today. So let's hold questions until the end. Vonda and I will monitor the chat. If it's really something we need to bug you about, we will, but we'll hold questions until the end for you. Okay, Nick?
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, so nice to meet everyone here. So my name is Nick Triggs. I run my own Microsoft partner that specializes in Fabric on top of Dynamics. I was actually a former Dynamics finance consultant and Business Central consultant, so I've been around the space. from pretty much all my career, and then gravitated toward all this new kind of data, Fabric, Power BI kind of stuff. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today. I'm just going to jump into my presentation and we can go into it. So I was going to start off with some questions. I know we got a couple people here um, asking how many people have actually used reports in Dynamics, so maybe some of the out-of-the-box reports. I'm just going to go ahead and go on a limb and say most people have. Yeah, I got some hands up already. Most people have used them straight out of the box. But the follow-up question, which I think is the one that I'm mostly interested in knowing, how many of you in this call so far has actually tried Power BI as part of that reporting that you're doing in your company? Okay, okay, so that's good. And I asked these questions uh, to get a feel, where people are at, because there's a major difference between what you're given out of the box within Dynamics and then what Power BI as a tool does, especially with all this AI stuff happening now and Microsoft Fabric being the new rebrand of Power BI. It has changed so much, right? And that's really what we're going to go over today. I'm going to talk about the current Dynamics reporting landscape, the limitations of what it actually gives you, both Power BI and out of the box standard reports. Then we're going to go a bit over how to actually connect some of the data and modeling it for Power BI, designing some of those reports so that people can use the reports and then continue to use them, and then govern them after they go live. That last point there is actually really starting to become more of a topic nowadays with everyone trying to build all this cool stuff. Governance is something that I find it's quite ignored in the entire ecosystem, right? And then finally, I mean, the main learning objective of everyone here is hopefully to walk away with some clear next steps of how you can actually start doing this in your company today. One of the best things about Power BI is that it's a free license. You can start developing it today. And then when you're ready to actually start paying for it with a fully developed report, you can go ahead and do that. So this should give you a nice roadmap of how to actually start in your organization today. Okay. So current reporting across Dynamics is really broken up, in my opinion, into about 5 categories. This whole session is a system agnostic. Like I said, I've been around the ecosystem, so I know what groups the reports are in Business Central, customer engagement, finance and operations, which is obviously the big ones. And they fall into these kind of standard reporting, I would call, category up at the top, right? Then more financial reporting, except for customer engagement. That one's it's more just operational. They don't really have financial stuff. But then you keep going and you get into this idea of views, right? You go from um, just paginated reports. So you run a report and it's just pages and pages of reports and maybe even a tiny dashboard, to actually having like customized views and customized dashboards for your role out of the box, either built by users or just standard reporting that you can just search for and click. And then finally, at the bottom tier, at the bottom row, we have reports that are actually embedded within the system with Power BI. And that's really the key to distinguish between what you're given and then what BI as a technology actually gives you, right? There's this idea of data modeling, which we'll go into later, that drives this embedded report with Power BI that gives you the analysis, the insights. It goes from just looking at a report to actually giving you historic analysis, right? Predicting what's going to happen, giving you insights into why something happened, so you don't have to ask those questions all the time, and that gets into actually making really good decisions. So although this landscape is quite broad, as I just showed, there are some limitations with all of this out-of-the-box reporting. Just briefly, these are the top 4 things I see. First of all, they're rigid. The reports that you're given answer all these questions that Microsoft may want you to know from the standard implementations of these systems. But all the questions that you have, in your company as you start using these systems, they just don't cover, right? Because I mean, they can. They're built out of the box. So if you use different fields than Microsoft may want you to, or you customize something, it's not going to be picked up in these out of the box reports, and you can't really report on it. Move on to that second point there. It's kind of similar to the first one, but even if you have those data, that data into those reports, they don't have an explanation. The example I'd like to give is maybe you understand that your inventory is going to be negative for some reason, and you run the report, but it's still going to present it as, a negative number when you want it to be presented as something that's positive. So all this kind of context is lost with those out of the box reports as well. On that third point, it can also be pretty disconnected. You're going to be able to run the reports when you go into the system and click it and manually run it every day, but there's none of that automation that BI and data modeling and Power BI really gives you. Again, that's the real benefit of it. You just don't have that with these out-of-the-box reports, and increasingly people need this kind of stuff for their companies to compete nowadays. And finally, this is the hottest topic now, I guess, but they're not ready for AI. I know it sounds counterintuitive because Microsoft likes to pump a bunch of Copilot stuff, and I love Copilot. It's great. I use it. But in terms of, actually getting your data usable for those models, the Power BI data model is literally the behind the scenes technology that is governing things like Copilot. And that's where you get into Fabric and all this kind of stuff that govern your data. So that fourth point, I think, if we're going to go through a framework to implement some stuff later, but that fourth point is really the main takeaway I would say from today, because if your organization wants to get ready for AI, it's with that data modeling side of it. Okay. And then all these limitations being presented, there's this gap that Power BI and Fabric actually closes, with those limitations. So going on that first point, it's built actually around your questions that you're going to ask, because you're going in and you're building them. You're building the reports. You know the questions that you want to have answered. You're designing the reports for context, instead of actually just presenting that negative number that I gave. You can explain that, hey, this is negative on the report and this is why, and automate that whole explanation process to give the context. It's closing the gap with that one source of truth that you can use across all of your reporting. So if you're going to have sales numbers for your finance team and sales numbers for your operations team that you want to be the same, you can do that now with Fabric. You can do that with Power BI, whereas out of the box reports, they don't really give you that level of flexibility and truth, because you run a report on the finance side, it's different than you're running the report on the actual sales side in Business Central, for example. And then again, that AI ready by default kind of idea, where the data models that we're making for Power BI are actually the exact same models you're going to be using for agents down the line. Okay. All of this, I think, can be summarized by this. I know it's pretty direct, but I think it's an important point that modern businesses nowadays compete on data. And the ones that do not put in the work to actually understand the data, which is the whole concept of BI, the whole concept of doing this work, will lose to the ones that do. One of the best examples of this I always give is Netflix, because it's just a data company. You open Netflix and you see all your algorithms and stuff and the best possible things that you can watch. That's their competitive advantage. They do it in an automatic way. That's the level you can get to if you actually get into these types of technologies, and level up the modeling and the reporting and all the data in your company. But with all that being said, Power BI projects still fail. It's still something that I see a lot of organizations struggle with. These are some very good stats into the two most important areas I think that organizations struggle with. So the first stat with the 25% employee adoption rate. Most companies spend money on BI develop it without the end users' problems in mind. They just kind of start developing, and no one uses the report afterwards. And on the right side, most of the projects fail to actually answer those questions that they intended to answer at the beginning because it's too difficult, it's too expensive, or whatever the reason. Nowadays, even though, these stats are starting to lower and they're still a bit true, nowadays we have things like AI to help development speed it up. So I always say BI nowadays and modeling, data modeling, all that kind of stuff, you can do better quality reporting, and you won't see these numbers anymore with the same budget because we have these new technologies. So you're not like the quality is just getting better and better. Um, there's really no excuse to be able to actually get the insights that you need now from these projects. And so on that point, I talked a bit about how it's difficult to have these projects, but how do you actually do it? How do you actually make that project successful? So this is the BI done right framework, I like to call it. It's the standard framework I use, and I've built with hundreds of reports over the years, where it's this six-pillared framework. Pillared meaning you don't have to go sequentially, you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You can if you want, but at least if you look at all of these six sections, you're in pretty good shape of actually understanding the problems that you're trying to solve and then having that successful implementation. So just right off the bat, just very briefly, I'll talk about these and I'll go into depth in each one. First off, you want to actually assess where you are, right? Find out how mature your company is for analytics. Second, you want to assemble that right team to make sure that you're having the people to actually develop what you're trying to develop. Third, those data pipelines to connect to all your different connectors inside of Dynamics. We have the benefit of actually being on the Microsoft ecosystem, which is great. So Power BI can connect natively, but there's, I'd say, right ways and wrong ways to be able to do that, which we'll go over. Fourth is that data modeling part, which is actually really, really important for AI and the blueprint of what you're trying to develop. Then designing the dashboards so people actually want to use it. I'll do a very quick demo and show you some of the ways I like to design dashboards for people to use it. And then finally, just some governance of how to actually handle dashboards after they've gone live. Some very quick ways of monitoring them so that you know people are actually using those reports. So with that first pillar, this is really about answering the question of where your company is on their analytical journey. This is a graph here, or is it more of a step design, I would say, is basically a way of diagnosing where you are on your analytics. So you ask certain questions about your data and about your company, and if you can answer these questions easily, then that's the stage you're at. 5 on the right there is where you want to be. That's where all companies want to be because you want to get to that level of autonomous insight. You want the data to just tell you what to do eventually. I don't think any companies in the world are at that point, but that's the goal, right? Whereas most companies are kind of farther down the line on the left in level 1, which is just asking what happened, just getting your data to that good, clean point where you can actually say, okay, this has happened. What do we do about it, right? And yeah, just answering those questions, kind of deciding where you are on that analytical maturity gets you some good insight into where you want to spend your time. If you can't even answer number 1, you're not going to all the way, go to number 3 to say, how do I predict what's going to happen if your data is not even good to predict to begin with? I will say too, most companies are probably on level 1 or 2. I never really met any other company before that because it does take a long time um, to get your data into a descriptive point. Okay. So moving on to pillar 2, the right team to actually get you across that analytical maturity curve and to that ideal 0.5 there is really made up of 3 different roles. I would consider 3 different roles. So we have that functional role, technical role, and a creative role. So you don't have to have one person having all 3 roles. You can have 3 people doing it. You can have 4 people. It doesn't really matter. It's just you have to, consider these types of roles when you're doing the project. So functional role, for example, would be more of understanding how Dynamics works. Typically, these would be your people actually using the reports, as CEOs, CFOs, managers. They're the people who are going to get the best insight of those reports and then know how Dynamics works so they can actually help say, hey, I have the sales number on my report. I'm posting invoices like this in Business Central. The numbers aren't showing up. That gives you a good idea, of what you're going to go to in Dynamics to actually get those correct numbers. Moving over to the technical role, this is the person who's actually going to do the development. It's probably the most important role in terms of making sure the data is accurate. But this is someone who understands not only the structures in Power BI to actually develop something, but the structures inside of Dynamics to get those right tables, right? To know how to connect to the system and develop those reports. This technical role is, again, it's probably the most important in terms of actually developing it, but all these three roles are going to give you a successful project. And lastly, the creative role. This is probably the most ignored role because a lot of people don't really think of dashboards as this designing thing, or they don't really put a lot of effort into it. But I tell you, it's so important to actually consider it, because people who are going to use those dashboards, they want to come back to it. And you can have good data, and you can have the right data, but if it's not designed in a way that's intuitive, it's going to be really hard for people to actually adopt those reports after they're gone live. I talked to so many companies where they said, yeah, we have Power BI, and they open the report and it's one number on the top left corner or something. Someone just put it together in a minute, and the data is correct, but no one's using it. And that's because, there's this whole idea of designing for their workflows and for those people. That creative role can come in and make sure that the person is actually using the dashboard. Okay. On pillar 3, we went to pillar 3. This is really about connecting to your data. So we just discussed assessing where you are, assembling the right team. Now we're trying to connect to the data in the right way. And I say the right way because typically with Dynamics specifically, there's the easy way, which is just opening up Power BI, looking at the connectors and clicking everything you can and starting to build. And then there's the right way, which is really for building for reports in the production level. So the easy way, looking at those connectors, is mostly just for proof of concepts or for development. You don't want to use those same connectors for actually running reports with your CFO and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why is because the connectors that you connect to, they're useful for Power BI. You can develop on it, but they're not dedicated. They're not really built for reporting. The best example of this from my perspective is, anyone's familiar with Business Central, there's a page in Business Central called Web Services where you can just look at any table and connect to Power BI. It works, but to a point. There's tables that you can connect to and you can develop it fine. You can spend hours, months developing the report. And then all of a sudden you publish it and people start using it and it breaks because it wasn't actually intended to be developed on past proof of concept or past testing in the first place. Right? And then the more you start building reports anyways, the more intensity you put on the actual database in the system. So you want to start moving things to Fabric, to Dataverse, to this kind of right path. So connect to that data, make whatever you need, get the proof of concept done, get the demo done, and then start trying to think about other ways to connect to the data inside of what you're doing. Like I said, Dataverse and Fabric is probably the best answer with the Dynamics ecosystem. But there are third-party systems, stuff like that too, you can use if that can be difficult or costly for your company as well. Okay, so now that we're connected to the data, we have this concept called a data model. And I referenced it before earlier in the presentation. I kept hitting on it. And this is because this is really the most important part of BI. literally your data model is BI. Like it's the invention of this type of technology. And the data model is going to be this blueprint that gives your how would you say, um, gives your data the instructions in order to actually give insights to people. Okay, so it takes the data, it changes it, as you can see in this workflow here, takes data from those raw tables, changes it with those pipelines and transforms it, cleans it, all that kind of stuff, puts it in this model, which is that blueprint that I just mentioned, and then it publishes it to your reports and dashboards. Recently, recently with Microsoft Fabric and the rest of the data ecosystem in Microsoft, you can start developing agents on this data model. So now it's not even just reporting, it's cleaning that data and then using all that work that you've done to make a great data model and use it for actual AI. So Copilot on like steroids basically, because you can do so much stuff throughout your organization, ask so many questions from your data model that you know is correct because you spent all this time making it. So this idea of data models is becoming more and more important in the ecosystem and is definitely something to consider going forward. It's really, in my opinion, it's the future of where all these systems are going, uh, uh, based on these different data models or semantic models, they're also called. Okay. So this is really a screenshot of the data model. This is Power BI desktop. You can see here there's all these different tables. Power BI has some very good out-of-the-box ways of looking at your models and organizing it. I highly recommend when you're developing things, use Power BI desktop. It's an application. You can download it. That is what gives you the power underneath Power BI and lets you make those data models. You just can't see any of this kind of stuff on powerbi.com. You can access it on powerbi.com, but yeah, there's so much other transformations, and really out of the box, this data model idea is really special with the Power BI application. So definitely recommend starting with that when you're modeling your data. It's built in. If you want to go to a higher level, there's um, another third-party application which is actually free called Tabular Editor. If you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of data models, or even like 30 or 40 data models, if you want to take a look at them all simultaneously, this software called Tabular Editor is very good for that. It's for bulk changes, and helps standardize development environments. So if right now you have a lot of chaos going on in your BI environments, then definitely I would consider looking at this technology to get a good insight on where you are with your development and how many reports you're developing at development. For example, I have a customer that they had no idea where they were in their BI development. We connected to this and we found out they had like 400 reports that no one was using because so many people just developed and gave up, and it was eating away at their database. So this is a great tool to analyze that. Okay. So moving on to the fifth pillar with actually designing the report. So we talked about connecting to the data, modeling the data, we're done modeling. Now there's that design aspect that I talked about, with that creative role that I talked about as well, to design the reports for your audience, not only for yourself, and get that high adoption rate that we've established is difficult in implementations. This is a very light framework with how to do that. It's similar to sprint frameworks, if you're familiar with that. Standard project management processes and development processes, but I see so many organizations don't even consider it. So when you're designing, first thing you want to do, this is really important, have that session with the end users. If you're developing the reports, talk to who's going to use them. I know it sounds intuitive, but I've met so many people who just start developing and developing and developing, and they don't even talk to who's going to use them. So of course they're not going to get used, right? So have those sessions with those people, get some time with them, understand what their problems are, and that'll really help actually point you in the right direction of what to develop. Second point there, wireframing. So wireframing is this idea of just putting a mock-up basically what the report might look like, so that they can A-OK it or approve it or whatever, and then you can start developing it. You don't want to start developing on something that they're not going to like, right? So that wireframing is a really good bridge step between the discovery and then actually starting to develop. Use their language. So that's just basically saying things in the report that they're going to understand, not yourself. If you're talking to a CFO, they're going to really know the difference between gross profit and net profit and all that kind of stuff. Ask them about that. Don't just say profit, right? Explain things in the report when you're designing it that they will understand, and ask them what they would like in terms of it being presented. Fourth point's kind of new. Power BI actually has all these other connections to other systems nowadays. So it's not even just about simply reporting right now. You can actually automate things with your dashboard. So you can have buttons where you click to Excel or click to export to Excel, or have different tabs and bookmarks, which I'll show in a bit with the demo. There's a bunch of other stuff that you can do through Power BI as this one like custom dashboard that is a powerhouse for users where they can do everything that they need to every day from this one dashboard. So there's a lot of other stuff you can do, from actually reading the data to making an actual action on the data in this step. Definitely talk to your users about that as well. If they send an email every time they look at that number, you can automate that, right? It's possible now. Okay, so it helps make that dashboard more sticky because it's actually involved into their workflows. And then the fifth point there is just review, refining, and repeat. This is an iterative process when you design, right? It's going to be something that you're testing some things out. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe they thought they wanted a bar chart. Now they want a donut chart or whatever. You can go ahead and fix that if you have all this design process laid out easily for them. You can go and repeat the process and not spend a lot of time wasted on things that are not going to get used. Okay. So really briefly, I have this dashboard. It's actually built into PowerPoint, which is awesome. This is a typical dashboard template that I would use for customers just because it has some great elements I find that people love. So this is a live dashboard, by the way. I can actually click through it and it'll filter all the data. So right off the bat, this layout, I have a navigation bar on the side. That is my staple any dashboard I ever build nowadays, because as you can tell, there's no way to click around this dashboard in PowerPoint, right? This dashboard is in PowerPoint. It's coming from Power BI, but there's no pages, there's nothing. I actually can only navigate to other pages with a navigation pane built into the dashboard itself, right? So I highly recommend every single dashboard you're building, put that navigation pane in there, because your report can be used in so many different places. Having that standardization really helps, not having to go back and start developing it again because you had it there from the beginning. On the right hand side, I actually have an export to Excel button. That was that step that I just talked about. It's not set up now, but this is a button that calls the Power Automate flow and exports to Excel and does whatever you want with it. It can put it into SharePoint, you can email it. Again, you can bridge that gap between reading the data and then actually doing something on it with buttons like this. Really small design feature, but really important too. This refreshed uh, text here. This is like refreshed whenever the report is refreshed, and it really helps with people not asking you when is the data updated. I get so many emails when I first started developing where people were just like, hey, I think the data is wrong or whatever. It's not, but I don't really understand when the last data is refreshed. It's actually in there in powerbi.com. You can see it, but some users don't look there. So I just built it into my dashboard all the time, and they're like, they know exactly where it is. So adding that refresh button is so small, it takes 5 seconds, but it really helps with people understanding what they're looking at, and so they don't email you a bunch of times to try to fix it. Okay. Um, oops, sorry. Just click this filter button over here. Here's a pop-up. This is also a really good design feature I like to add, and you can do this with Power BI now. because as you can imagine, most people want so many different filters and slicers when you're making dashboards. So having this pop-up where you can just kind of open and close, look out of that, open and close the filters and slicers, right? So you don't have to take up like just so much space at the top of the dashboard, side of the dashboard. You can just go here and click this, and you want to select quarter two, it'll filter that, and then I can press this close button, and there you go. I can open it back up again if I need to and apply my slicers. Again, really helps with that space, and then the real estate from your dashboard down the line. If you're going to keep adding more stuff to it, it really helps with designing for the future, stuff like that. Okay. All right, moving on to pillar 5. So let's talk about design. Now, what do you do after the report's live? Okay, you publish the report. It is live. People are using it. A lot of people think automation, Power BI is a BI automation, means you don't have to touch it. That's not the case at all. I'm telling you, it's going to break. There's going to be some things that people haven't considered in development. Microsoft updates something, right? We all know that happens. So once it's live, understanding who is going to fix it and when they're going to fix it is really important to consider, so that you're not, at the end of the year relying on some big report for your CFO to do your year-end closing, and they're emailing you saying that it's going to take so long to develop it and fix it, right? You don't want that to happen. You don't want them to have to open the report and it to be working and it's not. So the way you do that, in my opinion, is just to understand, again, who the owner is going to be. Typically, that's the person who developed the report. It can be someone on the administration team as well too. I work with a lot of customers, obviously, so if I'm the primary developer of the report, I'm going to use someone on their team to actually get emails if there's a failure, and then she's going to email me, right? She's going to be kind of a triage there, and then I'm going to be the one who fixes. So just understanding that question is really important for planning for the future. In Power BI itself, there's actually some built-in features to be able to see this. So for example, this is a per report usage, or you can even make it a per workspace usage feature to see how many people are actually using those reports and if they're failing, all that kind of stuff. This is built into every report that you published. You can go to the published reports today. If you have reports right now, you can see this today. A lot of people don't know this exists. You can hover over the report and it'll show you who's using it and how many users. You can see this is a demo report in my environment, so it's just me looking at it. So only I was looking at it, but I looked at it almost every day, or almost every couple days in the month of February to March. So it actually tells you who are using the report and if it's actually getting value from them. I would suggest still scheduling sessions with your report users, going over what they would like to add, feedback, all that kind of stuff. But at least if you don't have time to do that, or they don't, or if it's 6 months, once every year or whatever, you can still look at this and see who is actually using the report. So really great feature that Microsoft built in to all of their reports. Okay, so yeah, so that's pretty much everything that we talked about today. I know I went pretty fast. I had a lot of content to go over. Key takeaways is this pillar framework, right? So we talked about how to actually assess where you are, build that right team, getting that data pipeline going, the data model, which again is really, really important for your organization's analytical and AI maturity, right? Nowadays, designing that dashboard so people can use it, and then having governance and the right people to know how to fix the reports or build the reports later on once they've gone live. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Well, that's awesome. I have so many questions, but I know you, is there, what would be like your marching order? for the first thing that someone should do that has maybe never tackled this, Nick? Is it take the Microsoft Learn paths, or like what do you think? I always like to look at like what's do one thing after this session. What would you say?
I would say honestly, just start download the Power BI application and start playing around with it, right? It's free, like I said. You can connect to all of your Dynamics things, all your connectors, tables, all that kind of stuff. With Power BI, everyone has the license, because they're already on Microsoft. So yeah, definitely just starting to develop it and understand it is, I'd say, the best way to start
Yeah,
playing around
that's
with it, all
great.
that kind of stuff. It looks more
That's great.
complicated than it is.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I've struggled with visualizations over time. I mean, it's not that easy. Well, I don't think so. I don't live and breathe it. I'm more of a Dynamics customer service person, so I've always worked with the embedded, Power BI
Yeah.
embedded, and the apps and stuff. But yes, I've probably spent more hours than I'd like to recall just trying to work around with visualizations.
So there is Microsoft Learn Path. I've used them before. They're pretty good, but they still go heavy in those data analysis concepts, right? And I mean, you got to know some of it, I suppose, but um, yeah, I think that there's a really good Power BI channel called How to Power BI.
Yeah,
It's a
I know
YouTube
that one.
channel. You
That's
know
a
that
good one.
one?
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
go to
one.
that
Yeah,
one.
he's really good at visualizations. When I started
Yeah.
way back, that's where I kind of went to. So that really helps too. Just how to connect to my data, how to model the data, right? But
Hmm.
like I think that modeling piece is kind of the most difficult concept people understand. It makes sense once you start playing around with it,
Get in.
but I'd say if you're ever going to learn something, that's the thing to learn. Again,
Yeah.
because especially with the AI stuff, that is so important nowadays. Because we have all this data. The modeling
Yeah.
is the what you can do with it. So
It's like CRM chart guy from way back when. Is he still going? Do you remember him?
Hopefully he's using Copilot charts now if he is.
By now, CRM, he's like the
Um,
original. Shall we open
yeah.
it up to the
Yeah, like
audience?
yeah, please. If anybody has any questions, feel free to come off mute.
Yeah.
Turn on your camera if you want. I always have a million questions, and Nick, I asked you 150 questions at this session
yeah,
last
that's
time.
so
So, anybody
for
have
sure.
anything for Nick? Okay, no worries.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank
Robert,
you.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
have
can
a
message me. Sorry, I was gonna say you can message me on LinkedIn or anything too as well.
yeah, perfect.
I had a QR code, but I don't think it was in this presentation. So if you want to talk after this about how it might work in your company or whatever, obviously I can do that as well.
Sure, absolutely.
So are you saying,
Okay.
Tanya, you have a question?
Yeah, just I think you answered it. Like, why would I use online versus desktop? And
Yeah,
you build in desktop and you get a better data model structure. So that was the one question I asked is, and the other thing too is like, how do you get the right team? Like, what if your team is so small, you kind of are all those people? And I think you have to go outside. Did you go to an external and build sort of like if you're not a business user, like to your point earlier, if you're just the developer person, you will not get it right. And I work very
yeah,
closely with our technical team here at my company to build Power BI. And if we weren't collaborating, what would be delivered would be a very, very different
yeah,
Power BI report. And I'm client facing, so I bring in the knowledge to, well, this is what our clients will ask for, but they don't know how to ask for it necessarily. So you do need the technical heads that absolutely do the most brilliant part of it, but you really need like that business user. And so
mm,
if you don't have all of those roles at your company, like you attend things like this, like you go and you network and you ask for feedback on things and you meet people and you say, hey, I need to have a different perspective of this. So I find that some firms don't have all of these people that are willing participants, I'll say, to
yeah, yeah.
that. So yeah. Okay, awesome. I love it. And I love your tip about the navigation pane. I think that's very underutilized in Power BI and so powerful. Like it's the small things really have the big impact, I find. And people wouldn't ask
Yeah,
for that. Like you could go to a business user and say, what do you want to see? They will never tell you, well, in 99% of the cases, they'll
yeah.
never tell you, I need a navigation pane in my Power BI report. Right.
Yeah,
So
I put them in 100% of my reports, even if it's just one page. I still put it there. I'm like, hey, this is for the future because you're gonna
yeah,
add more stuff.
you're gonna
It
want
never
it. You're gonna want it.
it never ends, especially when you get good adoption and people like it. You know, it's like this thing where yeah, they start going, oh, I can analyze this stack. I bring in this data, all this kind of stuff. They opens their eyes about what's
Yeah.
actually possible. So
Yeah. No,
I like the
exactly.
refresh rate button. What a great idea, because the amount of times that comes up and people are like, is this
Yeah.
yesterday's
yeah,
data? Or I don't
yeah,
know what the licensing model is. I'm probably a bit behind with all
Yeah,
of it, but it
exactly.
used to
Yeah.
be that depending on what license you got, if it's enterprise, whatever, some refresh rates wouldn't be for 24 hours. You'd have to wait till the next day. So I'm sure things have moved on since, but
Yeah.
that
yeah.
tends to be everybody wants it like that now. So
Yeah.
So that's a good
it's
point. So
good.
that was just a bulk refresh. In my reports, we've done reports where it's actually per data source, which is
Yeah.
also another. I had a whole different refresh pane built for another customer where they were pulling from different ledgers in their financial system. So items, all, and they refreshed at vastly different times because there were such big tables. And
Right.
Okay.
so we literally had the total report refresh, and then all the different data sources refresh at different times. It's again, yeah, it seems so simple, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it
It's
helps
important.
people want
Yeah.
to know when the data is from. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nick, I surfaced up your QR code to go
oh, thank
and
you.
reach
Yeah,
out to you. Absolutely. And I think you have an assessment checklist too, which is a super cool thing. So I would highly recommend you guys grab that from Nick.
yeah.
So
Just email it to me. I have to email it to you guys. So,
yeah, perfect.
just message me on
Awesome.
T or LinkedIn, and I can send it to you.
Awesome.
Hey
Well, I
Nick,
could definitely, yeah.
hi. This is Ankit. Yeah.
Hi,
So
Ankit.
I'm from Vancouver. So yeah, just
Cool.
had a like, do you help customers in implementing the Microsoft Dynamics as well as the Business Central?
We have other partners that I recommend, but mostly on the
Mm-hmm.
data side. But yeah, I can help you there. You can message me on LinkedIn, and we can
Sure.
talk if you need help.
I'll send you. Sure, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And Kit, both Vonda's company and my company, we actually do
Oh, they do that
deliver
too.
those types of projects. Yeah. So Vonda's company is broader based. My company is more financial services, so wealth management on the Dynamics platform. We don't do Business Central, but Vonda's company Avanade, they do all of that stuff too. So in addition,
Can you
but
send your decks in this email ID if you can?
we don't get your emails from the
Uh,
registration. We have to go
I just
through.
put in the chat.
Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, Ankit, I'll make a note of that. And what
yeah,
I'll do next week, I always circulate the materials from the session.
yeah.
And we get the video posted as well up to uploaded up to YouTube. So you'll get it via the Meetup platform. But if you're happy for me to have your email, I'll just make a note of it as well. And I'll just make sure.
And Vanda, your company is based out of Ontario also? Or
No, we're a big global, so we are a Microsoft partner. We're partly owned actually by Microsoft as well as Accenture. So we're depending on where you are in the world, we're gold partner, or here in Spain, where I'm based, actually, it's platinum. Yeah,
Mm,
Avanade is platinum. Yeah.
oh, so
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
based out of like North America or outside North America?
Avanade's a
Um,
global corporate company, so it's located
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
we're across yeah, we're quite
Okay.
gigantic.
We have a little
Sure.
bit more content I just need to get through, so we're happy to take that conversation offline. But I just wanted to get through one more piece, and we call it our favorite things. So I usually ask the guests and the attendees if they have something just to kind of populate either the chat or come off of mute and talk about their favorite things. So I'll kick things off. And I'm going to talk about the grid control, the Power Apps grid control inside of the Dynamics 365 application. So the CRM. I call it a super subgrid because so what you're seeing here is a table. So we have a sample table. I call it financial accounts because again, my target audience is a financial service firm. So we have a table called financial accounts. And then we have nested tables around it that I want to see something. So when you look here, so this is the primary record. This is a related table, and this is a third layer related table. Like this is crazy nice to get down to this nesting. So this allows me to see data from 3 layers away inside of this nice little subgrid experience. So this is the feature that I'm most excited about. There's lots of features around grid control with lookups and groupings and things like that coming in this release, but this is the one that I'm most excited about. We did add what's called a polymorphic lookup to be able to triage it this way, but without the existence of a Power Apps grid control like this, we wouldn't have been able to make that possible as well. So I think this is one of the best features of this release. So that would be my vote for my favorite features. And I just wanted to include just a quick screenshot of the Power Apps grid control that you would add. As you guys probably all know, Microsoft in the CRM space is deprecating two grid controls, the read-only and the editable grid. Deprecating, not removing just yet, but deprecating. So highly recommend you switch over to the Power Apps grid control going forward, and then to be able to get down to that layering effect, just phenomenal for your users. And then the one other thing on the Power Apps grid control is you can group this data. So if you had, say, numeric data in here and you link it, so this is one record. Let's say I have multiple, in this case, it doesn't even matter, it's called workflows, it doesn't matter. But let's say you have multiple workflows, and let's say there's a days open field, and you trigger this row and it has a one to many. You can group this row and have a count of it's been open in total for 52 days. Like you can tally the rows in a grouping in the subgrid. Like it's so nice. Yeah, like it's just so nice. So so I highly recommend, if you haven't tackled this one yet, it's going to be a really neat one. So okay, time is a ticking. We got 1 more minute. So Vonda, do you have a favorite thing that you want to talk about?
I do, and maybe I'll just quickly share my screen. I haven't done a nice screenshot as
So-
And while you're doing
Sorry, I
that,
was
you
gonna
had.
say I have to leave now.
Yep,
Apologize,
Nick, thank
but
you.
I
Have
got
a
a hard
safe
stop at
trip.
1.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Really appreciate your
Yes.
time today.
Enjoy the
And
presentation.
we'll share it. Really
Thank
great
you.
job.
You
Awesome.
need
Thank you,
anything?
Nick.
Yeah, message me, connect with me. So
Will
Yeah, we
do.
got your digits. Thank you. So just to wrap up, because we've only got a minute or so, looking at what's coming up in the release, in Wave 1 release, I'm a Dynamics contact center, Dynamics customer service person. That tends to be my wheelhouse. And one thing I love that's coming up, and I've just shared the screen here, it's under the, if I just scroll up a little bit here, is the contact center area. And within that, the Copilot and AI. What they've now introduced, and it'll be available as a general availability, will be in July. In the past, we've had, there's a quality evaluation button, request evaluation, and that used to be just specific to cases, so record type. And now it's been opened up to conversations. So conversations that are held, or closed conversations in the contact center. And now you can select multiple, so like a bulk selection, hit the request evaluation, and the AI work that's going on behind the agent, skim through. It will evaluate the quality of that conversation for you. Did the CSR follow the business process steps or business process flows they should have done? Did they remember to communicate X, Y, Z to the customer? That kind of thing. So any little flaws that were there in the conversation, they'll be
That's awesome. That's
brought
really good.
up. So that's my
Nice.
favorite thing.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. we got to wrap. It's 1:00 here. I gotta go. I put in a QR code for the feedback. If you guys have a minute just to give us some feedback, please take a peek at that QR code. And then our next meetup, May 21st. It's gonna be more co-pilot, so it's gonna be awesome. And we have a guest speaker, Nathan Bench. So please join us in May. Hope to see you then. And it will be a couple days before we get this post onto YouTube, but we'll get that posted. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
Lovely.
joining us. All right.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.